Welcome to the JMark Business Innovation Technology Experience.
Welcome to everybody that's joining us on Facebook right now or later on the podcast when it's broadcast. Today we have, our thoughts and prayers are, of course, with those that are being affected by second hurricane in the south. And we are going to talk about a little bit of an interesting topic. Well, definitely interesting. We'll see where the conversation goes, I think, because it's potentially going to be a surprise where it goes. The topic, the concept we came up with was about Chicken Little and Tony Robbins. And the nothing against Chicken Little or nothing against Tony Robbins. The idea was about the technology outlook in the current situation that's going on in business climate in the United States and the world. And the thought came about, and feel free anyone to interrupt me at any point, but the thought is that, you know, we were talking about how people are kind of in somewhat of a stagnant state of decision making right now, where technology truly is a force that can change things. But you have business owners that are sitting there going, well, you know what, I got employees that have COVID or that are trying to prevent it. I have employees working remote. I have, customers I have to take care of. I have cash flow issues potentially. I have whatever challenges that people might be dealing with. And there's this other side of where you might be hearing somebody like JMark going, technology can help you. Raw technology, and that can help you innovate, and that can help you increase your velocity, and that can help you be more productive. And while that's all absolutely true, the truth is that it's always somewhere in the middle, depending on your strategy. And if you're sitting there, thinking about, you maybe have this issue with technology, maybe it's not working how you want it to, but at the same time, you're dealing with all these other challenges. You may be thinking, I don't have time to vet IT providers. I don't have the budget to, throw all this money into technology changes. While I know that might help, I got these other more urgent issues that I have to deal with. And so that's the idea of kind of the discussion is, where does the balance live between Chicken Little, the sky is falling, and the idea of Tony Robbins, rah, just be positive, everything's gonna be awesome, and everything will be well. And again, nothing to do with Chicken Little or Tony Robbins, but just the idea there. And I think that one of the first things that we're discussing earlier was this idea of priorities. Where do the priorities lie? Because they're different for everybody. And Dax, I know you had something that you were itching to share about priorities.
Well, I think it was just, we talked a little bit about priorities, about this concept of priorities in preparation for this. And it reminded me of something that happened to me. This was back last winter, and I had a notice of a recall repair that needed to be done on my car. So I took it to the dealership, and it was just something minor, but just one of those, a recall has been set, bring this in, fix it for you, send you home. And so I was sitting there in the waiting room and doing some work and sitting around, and again, I had only taken my car in for a recall, so there wasn't actually any repairs that I knew done other than that. And one of the salesmen walks in, and the first thing he says to me is, "Hey, Mr. Bambro, let's see what we can do to get you in a new car today." And I'm like, I'm just waiting for my car to be, for the recall repair on my car. My car is pretty new. I don't need a brand new car today. And it was kind of shocking, and it made me like hesitant. Like, is that the type of sales push that I'm going to get from these guys if I ever came to this dealership for any other reason? And the way this ties back into technology is I think people get nervous about talking to MSPs because they're afraid that that's going to be what's going to happen, that an MSP is going to come in and say, hey, let's get you into entirely new technology today. Let's throw out everything you've got and, give you all this brand new stuff. Whereas that's entirely not the case. And I think it's important that people understand that a good MSP is going to come in and sit down with you and prioritize. They're going to help you look at what needs to be done, look at what you can do, look at how you can get your technology in shape based on highest priorities of what's going to be most impactful, what is at the most risk, and they're going to help you. And so you shouldn't be afraid of that conversation, because it's going to be a conversation with a good MSP. At least this conversation is going to be about prioritize getting you where you want to be, not changing where you are immediately.
Yeah, I think from a sales perspective, which is the world that I live in, the conversation I'm having today is dramatically different than I was having 6 months ago. It's much more empathetic. It's much more, and I say it off the top. I'm not really here to, hey Dax, I'm not here to really say anything. Tell me how you're doing. How are you doing through this? And then if there's a little bit of an opening, or if they seem receptive to have a conversation, then yeah, I move forward with it. But that's an interesting experience that you had, and I think that is one of the reputations that MSPs have, is a little bit of a kind of a car salesman-ish approach. So yeah.
It kind of reminds me of a recent experience too. I was getting an oil change. Happened to be our anniversary. So what does Todd do on his anniversary is go get an oil change. And so
my face that I was starting to laugh because I knew that's when it was.
That may be a future question for a prize. But anyways, and it was a few months ago, still during COVID and everything. And we were sitting outside the place, and this guy comes up and says, is this the kind of place that tries to sell you, a new car when you get an oil change? Meaning, you need this, you need this, you need this, you need this. And I was like, nah, they're good. But that's a good point that I hadn't really considered. And I think, when we're talking about, there's this perception when you have to solve the problem of IT, that it's going to be difficult, that's how it's going to be. They're going to want me to spend $1 zillion on this. They're going to want me to replace this. They're going to want me to do this. And so then it becomes a lesser priority, because you just don't want to deal with it. You have these urgent issues that you have to deal with. You have these critical issues you have to deal with, and you're letting go and you're putting aside the important issues that you have to deal with. And I think that's the truth with any MSP, or maybe not the truth, but the perception is that with any sales, you're going to go in and they're going to be trying to sell you this and sell you that. And that's not necessarily how it is. I mean, while there may be some MSPs that do that, and I have seen MSPs that go in and say, we got to replace everything and get it under our stack, so to speak. That's not how good MSPs operate, unless your stuff is just really ancient. You're still living in the Stone Age, then it could be an issue. But I think we have to make sure that when we're sitting down to solve the problems or make the decisions in business, we got to constantly be pulling the important back in, and not just focusing on the urgent. And pulling the important back in, is going to be this idea of technology, because digital transformation is progressing at an unprecedented rate. There are ways that technology can improve innovation. There are ways that technology can to speed your time to market, can help you create new products, that can change the customer experience, that can help you to meet your customers where they are, and you have to prioritize it. You just have to bring it into play.
Yeah, I think something you mentioned there is also really important, that because what we're talking about here is business leaders who are trying to make decisions in a difficult time. And I think that one other slight misperception that people have sometimes is that the MSP is going to come in and they're only going to be focused on fixing the problems with your technology. But again, this conversation about priorities should, with a good MSP, should also include one eye on the future. What can you do now? And even in a small way, maybe you're not in a place where you can make a huge impact immediately because of COVID and because of the way that things are happening right now. But a good MSP is always going to help you have at least one eye on the long term, so that the things that you're doing now are working into a strategy that is building for the future, for a time when it can really come in and make a bigger impact and get you to that place you want to be. It's not always just going to be the immediate problems fixed.
Dax, you mentioned a lot of people might not be in a place to make the long-term technology decisions right now. And it reminded me of what we were talking about earlier before this, which is I think now is the best time to reevaluate and make sure, look at where your resources and your energy and your finances are going and weigh it out. Could they be moved from somewhere else into technology? Because, I mean, right now, more than ever, everything is digital.
Yeah, it's very, very true. And you know, when we're and again, we don't want to go to this, as we started out, we don't want to go to this side of raw technology is going to fix all your problems. And we also don't want to go to the side of the negativity that technology is not going to fix any of your problems. The answer is somewhere in the middle. And that's what we have to strategize on, what parts of technology. It's not just about replace and reload and redo and it's all going to suddenly work. We have to, let's look at the customer experience. What's going on with the customer experience that technology will improve. Banks are implementing a lot of video right now. They're doing training for their customers to help them do more of the digital banking. They're offering services to meet them where they are. They're implementing these, and I always forget them, these automated teller machines in places so that people, can be more comfortable with getting some of their stuff done, which is essentially just video technology. Well, it's more than that. But that's the point is, what do I need? Do I need to produce more products or services? Do I need to change my services, modify them in a way? Do we need to improve our customer service? I mean, it's like all these things, people look at them often from the standpoint of what they know. They're looking at these problems and going, well, we could fire this person, we could get a new software, maybe, we could change this, we could change that. But a lot of times in the decision-making process, we don't go, is there something with technology that would skip this problem, make it go away or move us to where we need to go? And I think that's a big insight that we have to go towards.
And I think the timing right now is critical because we're coming up on the end of third quarter. And the fourth quarter is right around the corner. And I think executives are looking at, okay, what do we want to accomplish in the last quarter? They typically reflect back on this year, which is going to be it's going to be a kind of a tough exercise, I think, in many cases. But what have we accomplished? And then what are we going to set ourselves up to be successful for first quarter of 21? and technology's got to be part of that conversation. I think, too many companies tend to blow off the whole technology conversation. All of a sudden they get to the end of the year like, oh my gosh, we maybe should have had that extra conversation, or we should have maybe invested to set ourselves up for a successful first quarter. So I think from here to the end of the year, I think there's going to be some decisions made for sure.
Yeah, it reminds me of what our CEO, Tom Douglas, always says, which is, you are a technology company. Every company is a technology company in 2020 and moving forward, because the technologies, even so many technologies that we take for granted, are so ingrained in the business processes that it's vital. You cannot improve your business and plan ways to make your business better and survive better, thrive better, whatever you're trying to do in the current situation, without making technology part of that conversation and part of that strategy.
Yeah, and I think it goes, multiple directions. We're trying to say that technology isn't going to fix everything, and at the same point, it's not going to do anything. But there are times when it's reversed as well. I mean, when you're having struggles in any part of your business, you don't want technology to then be another thing on top of everything else to make things worse. And what I'm talking about is security, and is backup disaster recovery, immutable backups. There's so many different aspects of disaster recovery and making sure your data is safe, making sure your data is secure, that a lot of people look at IT and MSPs as, doing the bare minimum of, making sure things run. But it really is about having a technology partner that can help make sure that when you're going through struggles, or whether your things are going great, that you're not going to have an even worse problem because technology comes in and does something, or because somebody random person in your company clicks on a link and takes down the network, or causes some PR issue where you have to inform your customers that you were breached. And we see it, a lot of people think it doesn't happen, but it's funny, because it's only funny to me because I send out thousands upon thousands of emails, and I get phishing attempts almost weekly from people in our prospect list, where somebody in their company has been hacked, and bam, now it's trying to get me. And it's just shows that it's happening everywhere. And you have to, when we're looking at an outlook that is uncertain, when we're looking at other problems in our business, you don't want something else pounding you down. You got to make sure that technology is there to support you, that you're secure, that your organization is, that your IT and is the organization is safe, and so that you don't have to worry about something else on top of it.
Yeah, I think, Christina said a few minutes ago that everything is digital now. And I think it's important to remember that. Important to remember the security aspect of things as businesses continue to adopt new technologies. You mentioned, Todd, banks figuring out new ways to interact with their customers. I heard the other day a commercial from a local jewelry store that, they're making appointments to go through a jewelry consultation. If you're looking for an engagement ring or something, do it all by video call rather than go into the store. And as I love this, that's one thing, I'm sure everybody who's been listening to this podcast will know that I am really excited about all of these businesses that I see that are seizing this moment to do something different and to find a new way to offer their services and innovate. It really gets me excited. But it's important to make sure that as businesses are doing this, they're also taking into account the extra security that they need to be adding on the new processes that they need to be planning into the work that they're doing to make sure that they're keeping their business safe. And the same thing with the backups and with disaster recovery and stuff, that they're in a place that should something happen, they can continue to do business, or they can be safe and be ready to deal with a situation like that.
We got a comment from Taylor on Facebook that I wanted to point out. She said, a good MSP should be a true partner with the customer. As a customer of MSP services, I look for a partner who clearly takes a vested interest in the success of my IT department and my business. He said, my bad. I worried about that the second I said it. Okay, I always ask a potential MSP, how will you show me you are a vested partner? So, very smart approach, Taylor, male.
Yeah, definitely. We've talked about in the past this idea of minimum right to play. And, there's, especially when comparing MSPs, you have your monitoring, you have your patch management, you have, all of these things that is the minimum right to play. But you have to look at the truth of what you're actually getting, because patch management isn't the same for one MSP as it is the same for another MSP. Monitoring is not the same. They don't have the automation tools and the training that goes on in the organization that another MSP has. And that goes along with exactly what we're talking about, this whole yin and yang of IT and making decisions. Because if we're stuck under this perception that we already have IT and it's okay, well, that MSP might not be up to the minimum right to play. Their idea of patch management might not be the same as what it should be, or their idea of monitoring or automation or scripting or support or whatever it is. It's just there's so many different variables in IT services and technology that you have to look for a partner that is really going to help you rise above your competition, that has the expertise, that has the bench, so it's, as we talked about, that has the partnerships, that can take you by the hand and say, hey, this isn't working, I think you should do this, or that's a good idea, but data says it's not the right decision. You need to go this direction, and let's look at some other options. And that's a true partnership. When you just have an MSP that is providing your IT services, that is of very little value. A true partner provides massive value that has ROI all throughout the agreement.
Yeah, I think it comes back to what we talked about at the beginning, priorities. A good partner is going to help you do that. A good partner is going to help you make the right decisions based on all of the factors that you want to weigh in your business, based on where you are presently, based on the challenges you're dealing with right now, and based on where you want to be at given points in the future. And I think that is a vital factor in finding an MSP that's a true partner, is that they're going to help you plan for those strategies that you want to achieve.
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on Taylor's comment, I know from experience that when we are brought in as a managed service provider and there's an IT person on staff at a company or a staff, there's always some intrepidation on their part. They're like, oh, okay, JMark's going to come in here, and how's this going to work? And we let them know from the outset that one of our jobs, well, going back to what JMark stands for is people first, technology second, is we're going to make these internal folks look like heroes and superstars as an extension of what they do. And that's hard to grasp on the other side of the table at first, but then once they see how JMark works and how we work hand in hand with folks and we are setting up for success, it's incredible that how things change and the outlook and how it just builds more trust. And it's been cool to watch that, because at first it's something, and then 6 months later it's a completely different game, and it's a real win-win for both sides, which is cool.
Yeah. This whole conversation is kind of making me think there are some business leaders who are not in a place to make a long-term tech decision right now. Like, that is the case for some. And so we kind of mentioned earlier, well, what are some short-term things that they can do technology-wise? And I think that becoming very aware of everything that we're talking about right now and learning these things, learning what you should ask your current IT partner, learning what you should ask a potential IT partner in the future. I think these are really solid short-term steps for your technology.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's I was talking earlier about how we kind of get in this mindset in our own little worlds of basically making decisions based on what we know. But if I told you that you could dramatically increase the communication in your organization, dramatically improve the collaboration in your environment, improve the connectedness of people in your organization, improve the morale, for a software tool that costs very little, you jump on it. You know, and these are the things that why you need a true partner that understands the breadth of technology, because you're in your world of whatever it is, healthcare, transportation, of banking, or whatnot. And while you may not be in a place to make a big investment or make big changes, that's not the question. The question is, what changes can I make that will improve this or improve that? And it might be a software, it might be a hardware, it might be a vendor, it might be that you are making up a story in your mind that any change is going to be a massive investment, and it may not be. And so I think that's really important on that front, because it is true that a lot of people are dealing with different things right now, and it's always the case. There's always something in business that you're dealing with, whether there's a pandemic or not. And you have to look at, you know, what problem do I have right now, and what can technology do to help me? And, you know, look at the ROI, look at the, you know, what you can do with it. And then it's not always about the long term. It's sometimes about just getting things going right now.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. You mentioned, Todd, making decisions based on what you know. And I think to bring us back around to where we started with this spectrum between, on the one end, endless optimism, and on the other end, the sky is falling. I think that the decision making that occurs in something like that is, you might be on the end where you're making decisions based on what you hope, or on the other end, making decisions and or not making decisions based on what you fear. And the sweet spot that we're trying to get to with helping people understand, and with doing what you mentioned, Christina, of learning the right questions to ask, is that you're making decisions based on facts, and based on the facts of your world for your business. And a good MSP partner is going to help you do that. They're going to help you get to that right place where you can make these right decisions.
I had a president tell me in a prior life, he said, you know, hope is not a strategy. And it's not. But when it comes to your IT, that is a real strategy. And I think there's still that mentality out there with some business owners that, well, IT is just, what, can you just fix my stuff? Whoops. Can you just fix my stuff? And that's not good enough in today's world. It just isn't. And it's our job to explain why it isn't and what the benefits are long term. And it's really changing a mindset, if you will.
You're going to kick your technology, Rob. We're not going to fix it.
Yeah. See, I hit my technology. It still works.
Hey, this reminds me too, I didn't think about this before either, is this idea of your technology provider. Are they Chicken Little or are they Tony Robbins? You know, when a lot of people have an MSP right now, and you may have someone coming to you saying, you need to fix this or the sky's going to fall. You need to fix this or the sky's going to fall. You need to fix this or the sky's going to fall. Or they may be the complete opposite. Don't worry, it's fine. The chances of that happening aren't going to go. It's so little. Don't worry about it. And that's where, as we talked about, you need an IT provider that can look at both sides. And going back to what Rob says, or Rob was talking about, there are times when we go into companies and their IT team stays, and we work with them and we take care of certain things and they take care of certain things. And there are times when we take over everything. It just depends on what needs to happen and what's the best strategy. But that's the thing, is people get in this perception of, if I hire outsourced IT, this is going to happen. Or if I already have outsourced IT and they're saying this, well, is that the right source of truth? And so it's really tough for business leaders to look objectively, especially when there are relationships involved. You might have a relationship with your IT provider, personal relationships. There's that could be influencing the real truth of your decision. And it's generally not on one side or the other. It's generally the truth is somewhere in the middle.
I think that's where J-Mark comes in with our honesty. And that's where you can count on us. That's one of our core values, which we live, breathe by. We're going to shoot you straight and not go for one extreme or the other, unless that's the case, but that's rare.
Okay, we won't shoot you. That's the other thing too I was thinking about is just this idea of what are some short-term strategies that could fix very specific problems. I wanted to kind of open it up to your guys' thoughts. What are short-term strategies that maybe people aren't thinking about that could solve a problem with everything going on right now?
I would say, we talk about, one of the things we do is implementing or putting together a 3 to 5 year business plan. Maybe short term, maybe put together a 90-day technology plan, something that's short. You can kind of see the end of it, and just put your heads together and say, what do we want to accomplish from a technology perspective in the next 90 days? And that might get them into kind of a mindset. It's like, okay, that worked. So they can start pushing it out. And all of a sudden they've got a year or 2 year, and you can budget around that and you can plan around it. And so that could be something to consider.
That's actually brilliant, because J-Mark goes in and we help our clients create these 3 to 5 year technology plans. But when you have a budget that is up to date, and I'm not talking a current budget, I'm talking one that's drawn out, it starts to open up avenues that you can go. You may see that we have this refresh planned and at this month or this year. What if we push it back a couple months so that we can implement this other thing that will fix this current problem, and that gives us this money. And there's a lot of people don't take the time, especially in times of crisis or distress, to go back and redo the numbers based on new information. It might be different employee counts. It might be different things like closing down an office and having people work remotely. And that in itself, you could be thinking there's not the funds to do something, but it could be just wrong because you haven't taken all of these things into account. So creating a plan like that is not hard to do, especially if you have an IT provider that is doing the brunt of the work for you.
Yeah, I was going to add, talking to an IT provider, there are certainly people listening that fall into the different categories, people who might be entirely outsourced with an MSP and others who have their own internal team. But I think one of the advantages that an MSP can bring you, if you do have your own internal team, is a perspective on how other businesses that might be similar to yours or might have similar goals, what they've done with technology to improve their business in specific ways or in certain ways that might help you. And so having those conversations to bring in that outside knowledge and that outside experience can be a huge eye opener, because there might be solutions that you haven't considered because you simply don't know that there are possibilities for you.
Yeah, I agree. On that same vein of thought is the idea of a network assessment. You know, a network assessment by a third party, depending on your organization, it's going to cost some money if it's done right. But the amount of money it costs to give you the peace of mind and the knowledge of what needs to happen is well worth it. I mean, you could have answers that you didn't even to problems you didn't even know about. I mean, we've gone in and done network assessments and found rogue access points and found vulnerabilities in the thousands, tens of thousands, and I can guarantee that a lot of business owners aren't thinking, you know, in their weekly exec meeting or whatever, you know, we got 10,000 IT security vulnerabilities we need to seal up. We have somebody in our organization that has their personal access point that, you know, what are they doing? And there's all these things that it's a small thing that could completely change your plan of whatever that plan is moving forward.
Another thing to consider short term, Christina, to your question earlier, a training course. You know, there's all kinds of training courses you can take, crash courses on Office 365 or, you know, whatever it is. But I think that ongoing education is very important, and you can do something pretty quickly, and the benefits are, you know, incredible.
Right now, as businesses are so distributed, I think a lot of people are, you know, doing the Zoom and WebEx and things like that for meetings. But the truth is, there are so many tools out there that can improve collaboration, improve project management, can improve communications, help improve the connectedness of you know, people being spread apart. And a lot of these tools are low cost, easy to implement, and they could be really short-term solutions that help everybody in your organization through a difficult time.
And I think, again, it's important. You never know the short-term solution that's going to turn into another avenue to improve your business over the long term. You know, again, I think there might have been these businesses like the jewelry store I was talking to earlier, where short-term solution, we can't have many people in our stores, so we're going to do consultations over video. But suddenly down the road, when, you know, things are back to normal, and suddenly you have two ways to offer services to your customers. And so I think that like my train of thought is always, the short-term solution might be a great long-term solution you just haven't thought of yet because it wasn't on your radar.
Yeah, and maybe the short-term solution too is to analyze your IT, you know, analyze other vendors. Knowing you're not going to make a decision for another 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is, you know, start looking and assigning people to understand that, you know. And we're talking about these short-term solutions, but I mean, that's an example right there where the best solution might just be to rip the Band-Aid off and start over. And if that has to happen, that has to happen. I mean, it just depends on what the strategy is in the organization, what you're trying to achieve, the problems that you're dealing with, and sometimes it's better just to rip it off and start fresh and make a change.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this a lot, you and I, Todd, in conversations going back years, this idea that sometimes you get to a point where you never really had a strategy before. And with your technology, this happens, that you just sort of take on technology as it's needed and as your business grows, but you never sat down and had a long-term strategy. You never sat down and thought what you wanted out of your technology. And I think that's an excellent first step that people can take, is to go back to the beginning and decide what you want, where you want to be, what you want to get out of your technology, so that then you can, that's the first step towards making these plans of optimizing and maximizing the return on investment that you get out of your IT.
And let's be honest, sometimes it doesn't matter what you want. Sometimes you have to do what's best for the organization, no matter what your opinion is. And that's the struggle that a lot of people are in, when it comes to IT, because they may have a relationship with the managed service provider, or they've used him for a long time, and ripping that kind of a Band-Aid off, that kind of relationship is tough, and it's not always what's best for on a personal side, but it's what's best for the organization. And there's so many different areas we could go on that. Rob?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think there's a lot of businesses who have the business has outgrown the technology. And I think the opposite should happen. I don't think business should ever outgrow the technology, because the technology should be a step ahead to lead that business to whatever, goal or goal that they want to reach. And I look at a lot of businesses now where the business is thriving and the technology's in the back seat somewhere, and it should be the opposite. So that's a mindset.
So I think as we started this, the idea was to talk about kind of the yin and yang, so to speak, of the technology outlook. And while it's true that a lot of companies don't have the resources right now, don't have the bandwidth and the money to invest in new technology, sometimes that's not what the solution is. Sometimes the solution is to make small short-term investments, or short-term, not just investments money-wise, but it could just be time-wise. And getting somebody on your side that can truly help you to make decisions, and that really understands your industry, that really understands the technology, how technology can affect your industry. The truth is in the middle of all these things. It's not about everything, the sky is falling. It's not about the rah-rah, everything's going to be okay. Maybe it is going to be okay. Maybe the sky will fall. It is what it is. But the point is that we have to do what's best for our organization, and the truth is generally somewhere in the middle. JMark has been helping organizations with this truth for 30 years. And if you'd like to learn more about JMark, head over to our website at jmark.com and fill out a form or give us a call, and we'll be happy to share our strategy and how we can help your organization. Until then, take care.
Thank you for attending this podcast. We hope it has been informative and helped convey that at JMark, we are people first and technology second. To learn more and discover additional content relevant to your business, please visit us online at jmark.com or at LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You may also call us at 844-44-JMark. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again.